Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into Tier 3 of the Christianity Iceberg. In this video, we'll explore some of the more obscure and lesser-known aspects of Christianity that many people might not be familiar with. If you haven't already, I recommend checking out our previous videos on Tier 1 and Tier 2 of the Christianity Iceberg to get a solid foundation. You can find the links in the description below. However, don't worry if you haven't seen those yet. You can still enjoy and learn from this video on its own. So, without further ado, let's uncover the hidden layers of Tier 3 and delve into some fascinating topics you might not have heard about before. Let's get started. Number 1. The Septuagint. An in-depth exploration. The Septuagint, often abbreviated as LXX, is one of the most significant and ancient translations of the Hebrew Bible. Originating in the 3rd century BCE, it was created to meet the needs of Greek-speaking Jews in Egypt and has had a profound impact on both Jewish and Christian traditions. This detailed exploration will delve into its history, composition, significance, and influence on religious thought and practice. The origins of the Septuagint are rooted in the Hellenistic period, a time when Greek culture and language spread widely following the conquests of Alexander the Great. By the 3rd century BCE, many Jews had settled in Egypt, particularly in Alexandria, and had begun to adopt Greek as their primary language. As a result, there was a growing need for a Greek version of the Hebrew Scriptures to ensure that the Jewish community could continue to engage with their sacred texts. According to tradition, the translation was commissioned by Ptolemy II Philadelphus, the Greek ruler of Egypt. The Letter of Orestes, an ancient document, provides a detailed, albeit legendary, account of the translation process. It claims that 72 Jewish scholars, 6 from each of the 12 tribes of Israel, were brought to Alexandria to undertake the translation. This story, though not historically verified, gives the Septuagint its name, derived from the Latin word for 70, Septuaginta. The Septuagint is not a single book, but a collection of texts. It includes all the books of the Hebrew Bible, known to Christians as the Old Testament, but it also contains additional texts not found in the traditional Hebrew canon. These additional books are referred to as the deuterocanonical books by Catholics and as the Apocrypha by Protestants. Some of these books include Tobit, Judith, Wisdom of Solomon, Sirach, or Ecclesiasticus, Baruch, and 1st and 2nd Maccabees. The translation style of the Septuagint varies significantly from book to book. Some books, like the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible, are translated very literally from Hebrew to Greek. Others, like the book of Isaiah, exhibit a freer, more interpretive style. These variations reflect the different translators and the times in which they worked. The Septuagint also contains numerous differences in wording and meaning when compared to the Masoretic text, the authoritative Hebrew text of the Jewish Bible. The Septuagint played a crucial role in the Jewish diaspora. It allowed Greek-speaking Jews to maintain their religious identity and practices. For many centuries, it was the standard version of the Scriptures for Jews living outside of Israel. However, as Christianity began to use the Septuagint extensively, particularly its prophecies interpreted as referring to Jesus, Jewish communities gradually distanced themselves from this Greek translation in favor of the Hebrew texts. The Septuagint had an immense influence on early Christianity. It was the version of the Old Testament used by the authors of the New Testament. When New Testament writers quoted the Old Testament, they often did so from the Septuagint. This translation was also the basis for many early Christian theological developments and liturgical practices. The early Church Fathers, writing in Greek, heavily relied on the Septuagint in their teachings and writings. The Septuagint's canonical status varies among different Christian traditions. The Roman Catholic Church and the Eastern Orthodox Church regard the deuterocanonical books included in the Septuagint as part of their canon. In contrast, Protestant denominations typically do not consider these books as canonical, labeling them as Apocrypha and placing them in a separate section or omitting them entirely from the Bible. Textual variants and manuscripts. Manuscript evidence. Numerous ancient manuscripts of the Septuagint have survived to this day, providing critical evidence for its text. Some of the most important manuscripts include the Codex Vaticanus, Codex Sinaiticus, and Codex Alexandrinus. These codices, dating from the 4th and 5th centuries CE, contain substantial portions of the Septuagint and are invaluable for textual criticism and the study of early biblical manuscripts. Comparative studies between the Septuagint and the Masoretic text have revealed significant differences, both large and small. These differences can be attributed to variations in the underlying Hebrew manuscripts used by the Septuagint translators, differences in translation philosophy, and the passage of time and transmission errors. Scholars continue to study these differences to better understand the history and development of biblical texts. The Septuagint has had a profound impact on theological interpretations within Christianity. Its translation choices and the inclusion of additional books have shaped Christian doctrine and understanding of the Old Testament. For instance, the use of the Greek word parthenos, meaning virgin, in Isaiah chapter 7 verse 14 in the Septuagint played a significant role in the Christian belief in the virgin birth of Jesus. Beyond its religious significance, the Septuagint has influenced Western literature and culture. Its stories, themes, and language have permeated various aspects of literature, art, and philosophy. Writers and thinkers throughout history have drawn upon the rich narratives and moral lessons found in the Septuagint. The study of the Septuagint remains an active field of scholarship. Modern translations and critical editions continue to be produced, making this ancient text accessible to contemporary readers and researchers. The Septuagint is also studied in academic settings for its linguistic, historical, and theological insights. In recent years, there has been a growing interest in the Septuagint within ecumenical dialogue. Its significance to both Judaism and Christianity makes it a valuable text for interfaith studies and discussions. Understanding the Septuagint can foster greater appreciation and respect between these two faith traditions. The Septuagint stands as a monumental work in the history of biblical literature. Its translation of the Hebrew Scriptures into Greek opened the doors for a broader dissemination and understanding of these sacred texts. Through its profound influence on Judaism, Christianity, and Western culture, the Septuagint continues to be a subject of fascination and importance. As we delve deeper into this ancient translation, we uncover not only the complexities of textual transmission but also the enduring power of Scripture to shape and define faith across millennia. Number 2. YHWH as an onomatopoeia. An in-depth exploration. The concept of YHWH, or Yahweh, as an onomatopoeia is a fascinating and unconventional interpretation of the Tetragrammaton, the four-letter biblical name of the God of Israel. This interpretation suggests that the name YHWH is not just a divine appellation but also a sound that encapsulates the essence of divine presence, echoing natural phenomena like breath or wind. This detailed exploration will delve into the origins, implications, and theological significance of understanding YHWH as an onomatopoeia. The Tetragrammaton, YHWH, appears over 6,800 times in the Hebrew Bible. It is considered the most sacred name of God, often translated as Lord in English translations to reflect its sanctity. The exact pronunciation of YHWH has been a subject of debate due to the absence of vowels in ancient Hebrew script and the Jewish tradition of not vocalizing the name to preserve its holiness. Scholars have proposed various pronunciations, with Yahweh being the most widely accepted among academics. The pronunciation Jehovah emerged in the 16th century, based on a combination of the Tetragrammaton with the vowel points of Adonai, another name for God. However, the exact historical pronunciation remains uncertain due to the loss of oral traditions and the absence of explicit vowel markers in the ancient texts. Onomatopoeia refers to words that phonetically imitate the sounds they describe. Examples in English include buzz, whisper, clang, and sizzle. These words convey their meaning through their sound, creating an immediate auditory connection to the phenomena they represent. The use of onomatopoeia in religious contexts is not unique to YHWH. Many ancient religions and cultures have employed sound symbolism to evoke the divine or natural world. For instance, Hinduism uses the sacred syllable Om to represent the primal sound of the universe and the essence of ultimate reality. One of the most compelling arguments for YHWH as an onomatopoeia is its association with breath and wind. In Hebrew, the word for spirit, ruach, also means wind or breath. This dual meaning suggests a connection between the divine name and the act of breathing. When pronounced, Yahweh can sound like an inhalation and exhalation, mirroring the natural rhythm of breath. Interpreting YHWH as an onomatopoeia has profound theological implications. It suggests that the name of God is inherently connected to the essence of life itself. Just as breathing is fundamental to human existence, the divine name represents the ever-present, life-sustaining force of God. This interpretation aligns with biblical passages that describe God as the giver of life and breath, as described in Genesis chapter 2 verse 7 and Acts chapter 17 verse 25. Mystical and contemplative traditions within Judaism and Christianity have long explored the connection between the divine name and breath. In Jewish mysticism, particularly within the Kabbalistic tradition, the Tetragrammaton is seen as a key to understanding the nature of God and the universe. Similarly, Christian mystics have meditated on the name of God as a means of drawing closer to the divine presence. The ancient Near Eastern context provides additional insights into the significance of divine names and sounds. Many cultures in the region used names and titles for their deities that incorporated natural elements and sounds, reflecting the belief that the divine was intertwined with the natural world. The Hebrew conception of YHWH as an onomatopoeia fits within this broader cultural pattern. Comparative religious studies reveal that the idea of divine names as sounds is not unique to Judaism. For example, in Sufism, the mystical branch of Islam, the repetition of the name of God, Allah, in dhikr or remembrance, practices is believed to draw the practitioner closer to God, with the sound itself carrying spiritual significance. A linguistic analysis of YHWH reveals its unique phonetic structure. The consonants Y or Yod, H or He, W or Vav, and H or He are all voice sounds that can be articulated without significant movement of the vocal apparatus, contributing to the breath-like quality of the name. This simplicity and fluidity support the idea of YHWH as an onomatopoeic representation of breath. The ritual practice of vocalizing the divine name in ancient times likely involved a deep, meditative awareness of breath and sound. While the exact methods are lost to history, it's plausible that the priests and prophets who invoked the name of YHWH did so with a keen sense of its auditory and spiritual resonance. Modern theologians and religious thinkers continue to explore the implications of YHWH as an onomatopoeia. This interpretation invites a dynamic understanding of God as intimately involved in the fabric of life. It encourages believers to experience the divine not only through sacred texts and rituals, but also through the simple, profound act of breathing. Incorporating the onomatopoeic nature of YHWH into spiritual practices can enhance meditative and contemplative experiences. Practices that focus on breath, such as breath prayers or meditative chanting, can be enriched by the awareness that the very act of breathing invokes the divine name. This approach offers a tangible, embodied way to connect with the presence of God. Understanding YHWH as an onomatopoeia opens up a rich and multifaceted perspective on the divine name. It bridges the gap between the ancient and the contemporary, the textual and the experiential. By viewing YHWH as a sound that encapsulates the essence of breath and life, we gain a deeper appreciation of the intimate connection between the divine and the natural world. This interpretation not only enriches theological and scholarly discourse but also offers profound insights for personal spiritual practice, inviting believers to experience the divine in the rhythm of their own breath. Number 3. Lost Early Heretical Texts. An in-depth exploration. The early centuries of Christianity were marked by a rich diversity of beliefs and practices, many of which were later deemed heretical by the Orthodox Christian authorities. These early heretical movements produced a wealth of texts that offered alternative interpretations of Christian doctrine, cosmology, and ethics. While many of these texts have been lost or destroyed over the centuries, their influence and the glimpses we have of them through surviving fragments and references offer invaluable insights into the complex landscape of early Christianity. This detailed exploration will delve into the nature of these lost heretical texts, their authors, their content, and their impact on the development of Christian orthodoxy. Heresy in early Christianity refers to beliefs and teachings that deviated from the established orthodoxy. The term heresy comes from the Greek word heresis, meaning choice or faction. Early Christian heresies often arose in response to theological, philosophical, and cultural questions about the nature of Christ, the structure of the universe, and the path to salvation. Several prominent heretical movements emerged in the first few centuries of Christianity, including Gnosticism, Marcionism, Montanism, and Arianism. Each of these movements had its own distinctive beliefs and produced a variety of texts to support and propagate its teachings. The condemnation of these movements by church councils and early church fathers led to the suppression and destruction of many of their writings. Gnosticism was a diverse and influential movement that flourished in the first few centuries of Christianity. Gnostics believed in a dualistic cosmology, with a stark distinction between the material and spiritual worlds. They taught that the material world was created by a lower, ignorant deity, often identified with the God of the Old Testament, and that salvation came through esoteric knowledge, or gnosis, of the true, transcendent God. Many Gnostic texts were lost or suppressed, but some have been recovered, most notably through the discovery of the Nag Hammadi Library in 1945. This collection includes texts such as the Gospel of Thomas, Gospel of Philip, Gospel of Truth, and Apocryphon of John. These texts provide insights into Gnostic cosmology, soteriology, and ethics, offering a starkly different perspective from Orthodox Christianity. Despite the discoveries at Nag Hammadi, many Gnostic texts remain lost. References in the writings of early church fathers like Irenaeus, Tertullian, and Hippolytus suggest the existence of numerous other Gnostic Gospels, apocalypses, and treatises. For instance, the Gospel of Eve and the Gospel of Judas are mentioned but not fully preserved in the historical record. Mark Ion of Sinope was a 2nd-century Christian teacher who proposed a radical reinterpretation of Christian doctrine. He believed that the God of the Old Testament was a separate, inferior deity from the loving God of the New Testament. Mark Ion created his own canon, excluding the Old Testament and including only a version of Luke's Gospel and 10 Pauline epistles, edited to remove what he saw as Jewish influences. Marcion's writings, including his edited versions of biblical texts and his theological treatises, have been largely lost. His main work, the Antitheses, outlined the contradictions he saw between the Old and New Testaments. While the text itself is lost, it is known through extensive quotations and refutations by church fathers like Tertullian and Epiphanius. Marcionism was influential in the early church and prompted significant responses from Orthodox theologians. The Church's effort to refute Marcion's teachings and to establish an authoritative canon of Scripture was a major factor in the development of the New Testament canon. Montanism, also known as the New Prophecy, was a movement founded by Montanus in the late 2nd century. Montanus, along with 2 prophetesses, Maximilla and Priscilla, claimed to receive direct revelations from the Holy Spirit. Montanism emphasized ecstatic prophecy, a strict moral code, and the imminent return of Christ. Montanist writings included oracles attributed to Montanus and the prophetesses, as well as exhortations and theological treatises. These texts advocated for the prophetic authority of Montanus and his followers and called for a rigorous, ascetic lifestyle. Unfortunately, most Montanist texts have been lost, surviving only in quotations and summaries by their opponents, such as Eusebius and Epiphanius. Montanism was condemned as heretical by the Orthodox Church, leading to the destruction of its texts and the marginalization of its adherents. However, the movement's emphasis on the Holy Spirit and prophetic gifts continued to influence later Christian charismatic and Pentecostal movements. Arianism was a theological controversy that emerged in the early 4th century, named after Arius, a priest from Alexandria. Arius taught that the Son of God, while divine, was not co-eternal with the Father and was instead a created being. This doctrine challenged the emerging Orthodox understanding of the Trinity. Arius's writings, including his letters and theological works like the Telea, were condemned and largely destroyed following the Council of Nicaea in 325 CE, which declared Arianism heretical. However, fragments of Arius's works have survived in the polemical writings of his opponents, such as Athanasius and Eusebius of Caesarea. The Nicene Creed, formulated at the Council of Nicaea, was a direct response to Arianism and affirmed the co-eternity and consubstantiality of the Son with the Father. Despite this, Arianism persisted for several centuries, especially among the Germanic tribes, leaving a lasting impact on the development of Christian doctrine. Docetism was the belief that Christ's physical body was an illusion and that he did not truly suffer or die. This view was associated with various Gnostic and early Christian sections. While no complete Docetist texts have survived, their ideas are known through the refutations of Orthodox writers like Ignatius of Antioch and Irenaeus. Ebionites were a Jewish Christian sect that emphasized adherence to Jewish law and viewed Jesus as a purely human prophet. Their writings, including the Gospel of the Ebionites, have been lost, but their beliefs are known through the works of early church fathers like Epiphanius and Origen. Manichaeism, founded by the prophet Mani in the 3rd century, combined elements of Christianity, Zoroastrianism, and Buddhism into a dualistic religion. Mani's extensive writings, including the Shaburagin and Arzhang, were mostly destroyed after the religion was suppressed by both Roman and Persian authorities. Some fragments and quotations have survived, providing glimpses into this once widespread faith. The early church actively sought to suppress heretical texts to maintain doctrinal unity and authority. Many texts were destroyed in church councils, book burnings, and persecutions of heretical groups. However, some texts were hidden or preserved by small sects, monasteries, and later rediscovered by archaeologists and scholars. The discovery of the Nag Hammadi Library in 1945 and the Dead Sea Scrolls in 1947 were monumental for the study of early Christianity and its heretical movements. These collections contained numerous previously unknown texts that provided new insights into the diversity of early Christian thought. Modern scholarship continues to explore and reinterpret these texts, using historical, linguistic, and theological methods. The study of early heretical texts sheds light on the development of Christian doctrine, the dynamics of religious authority, and the rich diversity of early Christian communities. The lost early heretical texts represent a crucial yet often overlooked part of Christian history. These texts, though largely suppressed and destroyed, played a significant role in shaping the development of Christian orthodoxy. They offer alternative perspectives on the nature of Christ, the cosmos, and salvation, reflecting the complex and contested landscape of early Christianity. By studying these texts, modern scholars and believers can gain a deeper understanding of the diversity of early Christian thought and the historical processes that led to the establishment of Orthodox doctrine. Number 4. Julius Caesar predicted by Daniel. An in-depth exploration. The Book of Daniel, a canonical text in both Jewish and Christian traditions, is renowned for its apocalyptic visions and prophecies. Among the many interpretations and debates surrounding these prophecies, one intriguing theory posits that Daniel predicted the rise and actions of Julius Caesar, one of the most influential figures in Roman history. This detailed exploration will examine the historical context, textual evidence, and various interpretations of the prophecy, as well as its implications for understanding both Daniel's visions and Julius Caesar's legacy. The Book of Daniel is set during the Babylonian exile of the Jewish people, traditionally dated to the 6th century BCE. However, most scholars believe it was composed in the 2nd century BCE during the Maccabean revolt against the Seleucid Empire. The book combines historical narrative with apocalyptic visions, reflecting the political and religious turmoil of the period. Daniel is divided into two main sections. The first 6 chapters contain narratives about Daniel and his friends in the Babylonian and Persian courts, while the last 6 chapters focus on Daniel's apocalyptic visions. These visions include symbolic imagery and cryptic references to future events, which have been subject to extensive interpretation and debate. One of the central prophecies in Daniel is the vision of the 4 kingdoms, represented by a statue in Nebuchadnezzar's dream, as mentioned in Daniel chapter 2, and by 4 beasts in Daniel's own vision, as mentioned in Daniel chapter 7. These kingdoms are traditionally interpreted as Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome. The identification of the 4th kingdom as Rome is particularly relevant to the discussion of Julius Caesar. Another significant vision is that of the ram and the goat in Daniel chapter 8. The ram, with 2 horns, represents the Medo-Persian Empire, while the goat, with a prominent horn, symbolizes the Greek Empire under Alexander the Great. The vision goes on to describe the rise and fall of subsequent leaders, which some interpreters link to Roman figures, including Julius Caesar. Daniel chapter 9 contains the prophecy of the 70 weeks, a complex and debated passage that outlines a timeline for the coming of an anointed one and the subsequent desolation of the sanctuary. This prophecy has been variously interpreted to refer to events ranging from the Maccabean period to the Roman destruction of the Second Temple. In Daniel chapter 7, the 4th beast is described as terrifying and frightening and very powerful, with iron teeth and 10 horns. Among these horns, a little horn rises and uproots 3 of the original horns. This little horn is often associated with a powerful and boastful leader. Some interpreters argue that this leader represents Julius Caesar, whose rise to power involved significant political upheaval, including the overthrow of key Roman leaders, believed to be the 3 horns. In Daniel chapter 9 verses 26 through 27, the text speaks of the people of the prince who is to come, destroying the city and the sanctuary. Some interpretations suggest that this prince refers to Julius Caesar or his heir, Augustus, under whose rule the Second Temple was eventually destroyed by the Romans in 70 CE. The mention of desolation and the cessation of sacrifices aligns with the Roman actions in Jerusalem. The vision of the king of the north and south. Daniel chapter 11 contains a detailed prophecy about the conflicts between the king of the north and the king of the south, traditionally interpreted as the Seleucid and Ptolemaic dynasties. However, some scholars see parallels with later Roman history, suggesting that certain descriptions could refer to Julius Caesar's campaigns and the broader Roman conquests. Julius Caesar, who lived from 100 to 44 BCE, was a pivotal figure in Roman history, known for his military conquests, political reforms, and centralization of power. His crossing of the Rubicon and subsequent civil war led to the end of the Roman Republic and the rise of the Roman Empire under his adopted heir, Augustus. Caesar's assassination on the Ides of March in 44 BCE marked a turning point in Roman history. Aligning Daniel's prophecies with the historical figure of Julius Caesar involves interpreting symbolic language and prophetic timelines in light of Roman history. Proponents of this theory argue that the description of the fourth beast with iron teeth aptly fits the militaristic and expansionist nature of Rome. The little horn, symbolizing a powerful and boastful leader, aligns with Caesar's unprecedented rise and consolidation of power. This interpretation faces several challenges. Firstly, the traditional dating of Daniel to the 2nd century BCE predates Julius Caesar by over a century, raising questions about the specificity and foresight of the prophecies. Additionally, the symbolic and ambiguous nature of apocalyptic literature allows for multiple interpretations, making it difficult to conclusively link specific figures to the prophecies. Traditional Jewish interpretations of Daniel focus on the historical context of the Babylonian exile and the anticipated Messianic age. Christian interpretations, particularly in eschatological contexts, often see Daniel's prophecies as foretelling the coming of Christ and the end times. The identification of the Fourth Kingdom as Rome is common, but the specific link to Julius Caesar is less emphasized. Modern scholars approach Daniel's prophecies through historical critical methods, examining the text's composition, sources, and historical context. While some scholars entertain the possibility of linking the prophecies to Roman figures, including Julius Caesar, the prevailing view emphasizes the text's relevance to the Maccabean period and the broader apocalyptic tradition. Alternative interpretations of Daniel's prophecies explore various historical and symbolic connections. Some see the prophecies as timeless allegories of the struggle between good and evil, applicable to multiple historical periods. Others focus on the literary and theological themes, such as the sovereignty of God and the ultimate triumph of divine justice. The theory that Daniel predicted Julius Caesar invites broader reflections on the nature and purpose of biblical prophecy. It highlights the interplay between historical events and prophetic visions, encouraging readers to consider how ancient texts can resonate with subsequent historical developments. Viewing Julius Caesar through the lens of Daniel's prophecies underscores his significance in world history. Caesar's impact on the political, military, and cultural landscape of his time makes him a fitting candidate for inclusion in apocalyptic visions, which often depict transformative and cataclysmic figures. The exploration of Daniel's prophecies and their potential connections to figures like Julius Caesar remains relevant for contemporary readers. It invites ongoing dialogue between faith and scholarship, encouraging a nuanced understanding of ancient texts and their enduring significance. The theory that Julius Caesar is predicted by the Book of Daniel offers a compelling and thought-provoking interpretation of ancient prophecy. While it faces challenges and remains a subject of debate, it enriches our understanding of both Daniel's visions and Julius Caesar's legacy. By examining the historical, textual, and theological dimensions of this theory, we gain deeper insights into the complexities of biblical prophecy and the enduring impact of one of history's most influential leaders. Number 5. Only the Father knows the day of judgment. An in-depth exploration. The phrase, "only the Father knows the day of judgment," is a pivotal concept in Christian eschatology, originating from the teachings of Jesus Christ. It underscores the mystery and unpredictability of the end times, emphasizing God's ultimate authority over the timing of the final judgment. This detailed exploration will examine the biblical basis for this statement, its theological implications, interpretations throughout history, and its significance for contemporary believers. The phrase, "only the Father knows the day of judgment," is derived from the New Testament, specifically from the Gospel of Matthew chapter 24 verse 36, where Jesus says, "But about that day or hour no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father." A parallel passage is found in Mark chapter 13 verse 32. In these passages, Jesus is speaking to his disciples about the signs of the end times and the coming of the kingdom of God. This discourse, often referred to as the Olivet Discourse, includes warnings about false prophets, natural disasters, and the persecution of believers. It culminates in the assertion that the exact timing of the end is known only to the Father. This statement highlights the omniscience and sovereignty of God the Father. By declaring that only the Father knows the day of judgment, Jesus underscores that the ultimate control over history and its culmination rests with God alone. This reinforces the concept of divine authority and the trustworthiness of God's plan. The passage also raises intriguing theological questions about the relationship between Jesus, or the Son, and God the Father. The assertion that not even the Son knows the day can be seen as emphasizing Jesus' humanity and his role within the divine plan. It also invites reflection on the distinct roles within the Trinity, where the Father's knowledge and authority are uniquely highlighted. For believers, this statement serves as a reminder of human limitations and the necessity of faith. It calls Christians to live with an awareness of the unknown and to trust in God's timing and wisdom. This perspective encourages vigilance, preparedness, and a focus on living according to God's will rather than attempting to predict the future. The early church fathers grappled with the implications of Jesus' statement. Figures like Augustine and Origen emphasized the mystery of God's plan and the importance of humility before divine knowledge. Augustine, in particular, argued that the uncertainty of the timing was designed to encourage constant readiness and moral vigilance among believers. During the medieval period, theologians like Thomas Aquinas explored the relationship between Jesus' human and divine natures in light of this passage. Aquinas posited that Jesus, in his human nature, could be said not to know the day of judgment, while in his divine nature, as part of the Trinity, he possessed all knowledge. This nuanced approach sought to reconcile the apparent paradox within the framework of Trinitarian theology. The Reformation brought renewed focus on scriptural authority and interpretation. Reformers like Martin Luther and John Calvin emphasized the importance of trusting in God's sovereignty and rejecting human speculation about the end times. They argued that attempts to predict the day of judgment were futile and potentially harmful to genuine faith and piety. In contemporary Christianity, views on eschatology vary widely. Some traditions, such as dispensationalism, place a strong emphasis on interpreting signs of the end times, while others focus more on the ethical and spiritual implications of Jesus' teachings. The assertion that only the Father knows the day serves as a common foundation, reminding all believers of the limits of human knowledge. The statement continues to be a point of theological discussion, particularly in relation to the nature of Jesus' knowledge and the dynamics within the Trinity. Modern theologians often explore this topic in the context of Christology and the interplay between Jesus' divine and human natures. It also intersects with debates on open theism and God's foreknowledge. For contemporary Christians, the teaching that only the Father knows the day of judgment has practical implications for daily life and faith practice. It encourages an attitude of watchfulness and readiness, as well as a focus on living out the values of the kingdom of God. It also fosters a sense of humility and trust in God's overarching plan. One of the key purposes of maintaining the mystery of the day of judgment is to encourage ethical and moral living. Knowing that the end could come at any time, believers are called to live in a state of spiritual readiness, embodying the teachings of Jesus in their daily lives. The uncertainty of the timing of the end times also promotes hope and perseverance. Believers are assured that God is in control and that the ultimate fulfillment of God's promises will occur in God's perfect timing. This hope sustains Christians through trials and challenges, providing a forward-looking perspective that transcends immediate circumstances. By emphasizing that only the Father knows the day, Jesus cautions against speculative and sensationalist interpretations of prophecy. This helps to prevent the spread of fear, confusion, and division within the Christian community. It encourages a balanced and sober approach to eschatology, grounded in faith and trust in God's wisdom. Living in light of the unknown day of judgment means cultivating a lifestyle of vigilance and spiritual discipline. This involves regular prayer, engagement with Scripture, participation in community worship, and acts of service and love. Such practices help to keep believers spiritually alert and aligned with God's will. The awareness of the imminent and unpredictable nature of the end times also motivates evangelistic efforts. Christians are called to share the message of salvation and the hope of the gospel with others, knowing that the time is always ripe for bringing people into a relationship with God. Embracing the mystery of the day of judgment fosters a sense of wonder and reverence for God's transcendence. It reminds believers that there are aspects of God's plan that surpass human understanding, inviting them to trust in God's goodness and faithfulness even when faced with uncertainty. The teaching that only the Father knows the day of judgment is a profound and multifaceted aspect of Christian eschatology. It underscores the sovereignty and omniscience of God, invites believers to live with humility and faith, and promotes a lifestyle of vigilance and readiness. Throughout history, this concept has been a source of theological reflection, ethical guidance, and spiritual hope. By acknowledging the mystery and embracing the trust it calls for, Christians are encouraged to live faithfully in the present while looking forward to the ultimate fulfillment of God's promises. Number 6. The Lost Teachings of Mother Mary. An in-depth exploration. Mother Mary, also known as the Virgin Mary, holds a central place in Christian tradition as the mother of Jesus Christ. Revered for her purity, obedience, and maternal care, Mary has inspired countless believers and has been the subject of extensive theological reflection. However, the canonical scriptures offer relatively few details about her life and teachings. This has led to speculation and curiosity about the lost teachings of Mother Mary, those insights, wisdom, and experiences that were never recorded or have been lost over time. This detailed exploration will examine the historical, theological, and cultural context of Mary, the potential content of her lost teachings, and their significance for contemporary believers. The New Testament provides limited but significant accounts of Mary. She appears primarily in the Gospels of Matthew, Luke, and John, and in the Acts of the Apostles. Key events include the Annunciation, which is in Luke chapter 1 verses 26 through 38, the Nativity, which is in Luke chapter 2 verses 1 through 20, and in Matthew chapter 1 verses 18 through 25, the Presentation in the Temple, which is in Luke chapter 2 verses 22 through 40, and her presence at the Crucifixion, which is in John chapter 19 verses 25 through 27. These accounts highlight her role as the mother of Jesus and her exemplary faith and obedience. Beyond the New Testament, early Christian writings and apocryphal texts provide additional, though non-canonical, insights into Mary's life. The Proto-Evangelium of James, for instance, offers details about her early life and the circumstances of Jesus' birth. These texts, while not considered authoritative by most mainstream Christian denominations, reflect the early Christian community's veneration of Mary and their interest in her story. From the earliest days of Christianity, Mary has been venerated as a model of faith and devotion. The early church fathers, including Augustine, Ambrose, and Jerome, wrote extensively about her. Marian doctrines, such as her perpetual virginity, immaculate conception, and assumption, have been developed over centuries and are central to Catholic and Orthodox theology. In the early Christian community, much teaching and tradition were transmitted orally before being written down. It is plausible that Mary, as a central figure in Jesus' life, shared insights and teachings with the apostles and early Christians. However, much of this oral tradition may have been lost or never recorded. Additionally, any written texts attributed to Mary that might have existed could have been lost due to the passage of time, persecution, or selective preservation by the early church. Various apocryphal and Gnostic texts offer alternative perspectives on Christian teachings and figures, including Mary. While these texts are not part of the canonical Bible, they provide a glimpse into the diversity of early Christian thought. For example, the Gospel of Mary, attributed to Mary Magdalene but sometimes linked to the Virgin Mary, presents unique theological insights that differ from the canonical Gospels. Mary's unique role as the mother of Jesus and her intimate knowledge of his early life could provide profound spiritual and theological insights. Her reflections on the Incarnation, her understanding of Jesus' mission, and her experiences of divine revelation could offer valuable teachings on faith, obedience, and the nature of God. As a mother and a woman of faith, Mary likely possessed practical wisdom about daily life, parenting, and managing hardships. Her teachings could include guidance on prayer, patience, compassion, and the nurturing of spiritual and moral values in a family setting. The depth of Mary's devotion and piety is a source of inspiration for many Christians. Her teachings could elaborate on the virtues of humility, trust in God, and unwavering faith. She might also provide insights into the practices of contemplation and meditation on the mysteries of God's work in the world. The dogmas concerning Mary, such as her Immaculate Conception and Assumption, are based on theological interpretations and traditions developed over centuries. The potential lost teachings of Mary could provide further context or support for these doctrines, deepening the understanding of her sinlessness and her role in salvation history. Throughout history, there have been numerous reported apparitions of Mary, such as those at Lourdes, Fatima, and Guadalupe. These apparitions often include messages and teachings attributed to Mary. While these are not considered lost teachings in the traditional sense, they are seen by many as continuations of Mary's guidance to the faithful and provide a framework for understanding what her lost teachings might have contained. Mary is also a significant figure in Islam, known as Maryam, and is revered as the mother of the Prophet Isa, or Jesus. Exploring the lost teachings of Mary can foster interfaith dialogue and understanding, highlighting commonalities and shared values between Christianity and Islam. Mary has inspired countless works of art, music, and literature throughout history. From the majestic depictions in Renaissance art to the tender portrayals in contemporary Christian music, these cultural expressions reflect the deep reverence and love for Mary. Imagining her lost teachings can enrich the devotional life and artistic expressions of believers. Many prayers and hymns are dedicated to Mary, such as the Hail Mary, the Magnificat, and the Salve Regina. These prayers encapsulate the reverence for Mary and her intercessory role. The potential lost teachings could inspire new prayers and hymns that capture the depth of her spiritual wisdom and maternal care. Marian shrines and pilgrimage sites, like those at Lourdes, Fatima, and Medjugorje, draw millions of pilgrims each year. These places of devotion and prayer are testament to the enduring significance of Mary in the lives of believers. The exploration of her lost teachings can deepen the spiritual experience of pilgrims and foster a greater appreciation of her role in Christian spirituality. Exploring the lost teachings of Mary can contribute to discussions about the role of women in the Church. Mary is often seen as a model for all Christians, but especially for women. Her teachings could provide insights into the feminine aspects of spirituality and leadership within the Christian community. Incorporating the potential teachings of Mary into spiritual formation and religious education programs can offer a more holistic approach to faith development. Her example of faith, obedience, and maternal care can serve as a powerful model for believers of all ages. The study of Mary's life and potential teachings can also promote ecumenical dialogue among different Christian denominations. While views on Mary vary widely, she remains a significant figure for Catholics, Orthodox, and many Protestant Christians. Exploring her lost teachings can help bridge theological divides and foster greater unity within the Christian faith. The lost teachings of Mother Mary represent a profound and tantalizing aspect of Christian tradition. While the canonical scriptures provide only a glimpse into her life and wisdom, the possibility of lost teachings invites deeper reflection on her role and significance. By examining the historical, theological, and cultural contexts, as well as considering the potential content of her teachings, contemporary believers can gain a richer understanding of Mary's enduring influence. Whether through theological study, devotional practice, or interfaith dialogue, the exploration of Mary's lost teachings continues to inspire and guide the faithful on their spiritual journey. Number 7. The DNA in Adam's rib. An in-depth exploration. The biblical account of the creation of Eve from Adam's rib in the book of Genesis has long been a subject of theological reflection and debate. This narrative not only holds deep religious significance but also invites questions from a scientific perspective, particularly regarding the concept of DNA and its role in human biology. This detailed exploration will examine the Genesis account, the symbolic and theological interpretations of Adam's rib, and the intriguing possibilities and implications of considering DNA within this context. The creation story is found in Genesis chapter 2 verses 21 through 22. So the Lord God caused the man to fall into a deep sleep, and while he was sleeping, he took one of the man's ribs and then closed up the place with flesh. Then the Lord God made a woman from the rib he had taken out of the man, and he brought her to the man. This passage describes the unique creation of Eve, emphasizing her origin from Adam's body. The use of Adam's rib in the creation of Eve has been interpreted symbolically in various ways. It signifies the intimate connection between man and woman, highlighting themes of companionship, equality, and unity in the marital relationship. The rib, being a part of Adam's side, symbolizes that Eve was neither above nor below Adam, but beside him as an equal partner. Deoxyribonucleic acid, or DNA, is the molecule that carries the genetic instructions used in the growth, development, functioning, and reproduction of all known living organisms. Each cell in the human body contains DNA, which is organized into structures called chromosomes. Human cells typically have 23 pairs of chromosomes, which contain the genes that determine individual traits and characteristics. Modern science has made significant advancements in the field of genetics, including the ability to clone organisms. Cloning involves creating a genetically identical copy of an organism by using its DNA. The process typically involves taking a somatic cell, which is a non-reproductive cell, from the donor organism, extracting its nucleus, and implanting it into an egg cell that has had its nucleus removed. This egg is then stimulated to begin dividing and developing into an organism. Considering the Genesis narrative from a scientific perspective, the rib contains bone marrow, which is a rich source of stem cells. Stem cells are unique in their ability to develop into different types of cells, making them crucial for medical research and therapies. If we were to interpret the biblical account literally, the extraction of a rib from Adam could be seen as an ancient allegory for using genetic material to create another human being. The rib, containing marrow with stem cells, could symbolically represent the potential for life and the capacity for regeneration. In a modern context, this can be linked to the understanding of DNA as the fundamental building block of life. This connection enriches the symbolic meaning of the Genesis account, bridging ancient scriptural narratives with contemporary scientific knowledge. Theologically, the creation of Eve from Adam's rib highlights the divine intention for relational intimacy and equality between man and woman. This account also underscores the idea of shared humanity and common origin, which aligns with the genetic concept of shared DNA among all humans. This perspective fosters a sense of unity and interconnectedness within the human family. The intersection of the Genesis narrative with modern genetics also raises ethical and moral questions. The potential for cloning and genetic manipulation brings to the forefront issues of identity, individuality, and the sanctity of human life. From a theological standpoint, these advancements challenge us to consider the implications of playing God and the ethical boundaries of scientific exploration. The creation narratives in Genesis have parallels in other ancient Near Eastern texts, such as the Enuma Elish and the Epic of Gilgamesh. These texts often contain themes of creation, the role of the gods, and the origin of humanity. The use of a rib in the Genesis account can be seen as a unique contribution to this cultural milieu, emphasizing the relational and ethical dimensions of human existence. Throughout history, Jewish and Christian scholars have offered various interpretations of the creation of Eve from Adam's rib. Early rabbinic writings and church fathers often emphasized the unity and partnership between man and woman. In medieval and Renaissance art and literature, the narrative was depicted in ways that reinforced contemporary theological and social values. In contemporary theology, the Genesis account is often interpreted metaphorically rather than literally. This allows for a harmonization of scriptural truths with scientific understanding. The narrative is seen as conveying deep spiritual and moral truths about human relationships, equality, and the divine image in humanity. Modern genetics has revealed the complexity and diversity of the human genome. The concept of Eve being created from Adam's rib can be metaphorically aligned with the scientific understanding of a common human ancestry. Genetic studies suggest that all humans share a common origin, often referred to as mitochondrial Eve, a term used to describe the most recent common matrilineal ancestor of all living humans. Stem cell research has demonstrated the potential for cells to develop into various types of tissues and organs, highlighting the regenerative capabilities within the human body. The idea of creating a new being from a part of another aligns intriguingly with the potential uses of stem cells in medical science, such as regenerative medicine and therapeutic cloning. The possibility of cloning humans raises significant ethical questions about identity, individuality, and the nature of human dignity. From a theological perspective, the uniqueness of each individual as created in the image of God, or imago Dei, is a fundamental principle. Cloning challenges our understanding of what it means to be a unique person and the moral implications of creating life artificially. The relationship between science and theology is complex and multifaceted. Scientific advancements in genetics and cloning invite theologians to revisit and reinterpret ancient texts in light of new knowledge. This dialogue can lead to a deeper understanding of both the natural world and spiritual truths, fostering a holistic approach to human existence. As stewards of creation, humans have a responsibility to use scientific knowledge ethically and wisely. This includes considerations of the long-term impacts of genetic manipulation and cloning on individuals and society. The Genesis narrative, with its emphasis on relationality and shared origin, provides a moral framework for evaluating the ethical dimensions of genetic science. The exploration of the DNA in Adam's rib, through the lens of the Genesis creation account, offers a rich and multifaceted dialogue between ancient scripture and modern science. By examining the symbolic, theological, and scientific dimensions of this narrative, we gain a deeper appreciation for the profound mysteries of human origins and the interconnectedness of all life. This exploration invites believers and scholars alike to reflect on the unity and diversity of the human family, the ethical implications of scientific advancements, and the enduring relevance of ancient wisdom in the light of contemporary knowledge. Number 8. The New Jerusalem will be a cube. An in-depth exploration. The vision of the New Jerusalem, as described in the book of Revelation, presents a compelling and richly symbolic image of the ultimate fulfillment of God's promise to humanity. One of the most intriguing aspects of this vision is the depiction of the New Jerusalem as a perfect cube. This detailed exploration will examine the biblical description of the New Jerusalem, its theological significance, the symbolism of the cube, and its implications for eschatology and Christian hope. The New Jerusalem is described in Revelation chapter 21 verse 1 through chapter 22 verse 5, a passage that portrays the culmination of God's redemptive plan. The Apostle John, the author of Revelation, provides a vivid and detailed account of this holy city. Revelation chapter 21 verse 16 states, "The city was laid out like a square, as long as it was wide. He measured the city with a rod, and found it to be 12,000 stadia in length, and as wide and high as it is long." This description indicates that the New Jerusalem is a perfect cube, with equal dimensions in length, width, and height. The measurement of 12,000 stadia, approximately 1,400 to 1,500 miles, suggests an immense and grandiose city. The city's construction materials are described in Revelation chapter 21 verses 18 through 21, which include jasper, pure gold, and precious stones. The streets are made of pure gold, transparent as glass, and the city's foundations are adorned with every kind of precious stone. The gates of the city are each made from a single pearl. Revelation chapter 21 verse 23 states that the city does not need the sun or the moon to shine on it, for the glory of God gives it light, and the Lamb, Jesus Christ, is its lamp. This emphasizes the divine presence and the eternal light that fills the New Jerusalem. The cubic shape of the New Jerusalem symbolizes perfection and completeness. In ancient times, a cube was seen as a symbol of stability and perfection, with equal dimensions representing balance and harmony. The New Jerusalem, being a perfect cube, signifies the perfect fulfillment of God's plan and the complete restoration of creation. The dimensions and description of the New Jerusalem highlight its role as the ultimate dwelling place of God among His people. Revelation chapter 21 verse 3 states, "And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, 'Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and He will dwell with them. They will be His people, and God Himself will be with them and be their God.'" This signifies the intimate and eternal relationship between God and His redeemed people. The vision of the New Jerusalem provides a powerful source of hope for believers, representing the ultimate destination and fulfillment of God's promises. It is a place of eternal peace, joy, and communion with God, free from pain, suffering, and death. This vision encourages believers to persevere in their faith, looking forward to the future glory that awaits them. The cube is a significant symbol in biblical and historical contexts. In the Old Testament, the Holy of Holies within the tabernacle and later the temple was a perfect cube, as described in 1 Kings chapter 6 verse 20. This was the most sacred space, where God's presence dwelled, accessible only to the high priest once a year. The New Jerusalem, as a cube, echoes this symbolism, representing the ultimate Holy of Holies where God dwells eternally with His people. The cube, as a geometric shape, is characterized by equal dimensions on all sides, symbolizing uniformity, balance, and perfection. In many cultures and philosophies, the cube represents stability and the physical manifestation of divine order. The choice of a cube for the New Jerusalem underscores the idea of a divinely ordered and harmonious creation. From a spiritual perspective, the cubic shape can also be seen as representing the fullness of God's presence and the completeness of His kingdom. The equal dimensions suggest that God's love, justice, mercy, and glory are perfectly balanced and fully realized in the New Jerusalem. The New Jerusalem as a cube signifies the eternal communion between God and His people. The perfect dimensions symbolize the complete and unbroken relationship that believers will enjoy with God. This eternal dwelling place reflects the fulfillment of the covenant promise, where God's presence is fully and permanently with His people. The vision of the New Jerusalem represents the ultimate restoration of creation. It is a place where the effects of sin and the fall are completely eradicated, and the new creation is characterized by righteousness, peace, and the presence of God. This hope of restoration is a central theme in Christian eschatology, emphasizing the transformative power of God's redemptive work. The depiction of the New Jerusalem provides encouragement for believers to remain steadfast in their faith. The promise of an eternal perfect city where God dwells motivates Christians to live with hope and perseverance, knowing that their ultimate destiny is secure in God's hands. It also inspires believers to live in a manner that reflects the values of the coming kingdom. The cubic shape of the New Jerusalem can also symbolize the unity and equality of the Church. As a community of believers, the Church is called to reflect the harmony and perfection of the heavenly city. This vision encourages the Church to strive for unity, love, and mutual support, mirroring the divine order and perfection of the New Jerusalem. Throughout history, the vision of the New Jerusalem has been a rich source of inspiration for artists. Medieval and Renaissance depictions often highlight the city's beauty, grandeur, and divine light. These artworks serve to visualize the theological concepts and provide a tangible representation of the eschatological hope. In modern times, the New Jerusalem continues to inspire literature, music, and visual arts. Contemporary artists and writers explore its themes, using the vision to address current spiritual and existential questions. The imagery of the New Jerusalem as a cube offers a powerful symbol for expressing the ultimate hope and destiny of humanity. The depiction of the New Jerusalem as a perfect cube in the Book of Revelation is a profound and multifaceted symbol that carries deep theological significance and eschatological hope. This vision represents the ultimate fulfillment of God's redemptive plan, the perfection and completeness of His kingdom, and the eternal communion between God and His people. By examining the biblical description, the symbolism of the cube, and the implications for believers, we gain a richer understanding of this divine promise. The New Jerusalem serves as a source of encouragement and hope, inspiring Christians to live faithfully in anticipation of the glorious future that awaits them in God's eternal dwelling place. Number 9. Renegade Angels of Death. An in-depth exploration. The concept of renegade angels of death is a fascinating and complex subject that touches on various aspects of theology, mythology, and literature. These beings, often depicted as fallen or rebellious angels, hold a significant place in the narrative traditions of many cultures and religions. This detailed exploration will delve into the origins, characteristics, and roles of these renegade angels, examining their depiction in religious texts, mythological stories, and modern interpretations. Angels are supernatural beings that serve as messengers and agents of the divine in many religious traditions, including Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. They are typically depicted as benevolent, obedient servants of God who carry out His will. However, some angels are portrayed as rebelling against divine authority, leading to their fall from grace. One of the most well-known accounts of a renegade angel is the fall of Lucifer. According to Christian tradition, Lucifer was a high-ranking angel who led a rebellion against God, resulting in his expulsion from heaven. This story is rooted in passages from the Bible, such as Isaiah chapter 14 verses 12 through 15 and Ezekiel chapter 28 verses 12 through 17, which describe the downfall of a proud and powerful being. In Revelation chapter 12 verses 7 through 9, the battle between Michael and his angels and the dragon, often identified as Satan, is depicted, culminating in the dragon's defeat and expulsion from heaven. In Jewish mythology, the story of Azazel and the Watchers provides another example of renegade angels. The Book of Enoch, an ancient Jewish text, describes a group of angels called the Watchers who descended to earth and took human wives, producing a race of giants known as the Nephilim. Azazel, a prominent figure among the Watchers, taught humans forbidden knowledge and was subsequently punished by God. This narrative highlights themes of rebellion, corruption, and divine retribution. In Islamic tradition, Iblis or Satan is a jinn who refused to bow to Adam and was subsequently cast out of heaven. Although not an angel, Iblis's story parallels the accounts of fallen angels in other religious traditions. Islamic teachings also mention the existence of angels of death, such as Azrael, who are responsible for taking the souls of the deceased. While Azrael is generally depicted as obedient to God's will, the concept of renegade angels of death can be explored through various mythological and literary interpretations. Renegade angels of death are characterized by their defiance and rebellion against divine authority. Their actions often stem from pride, jealousy, or a desire for power, leading them to challenge the established order. This defiance sets them apart from the obedient angels who faithfully serve God. As agents of death, these renegade angels are often associated with bringing death and destruction. Their rebellion is marked by acts of violence and chaos, disrupting the harmony of creation. This destructive role underscores their opposition to divine will and their alignment with malevolent forces. In many narratives, renegade angels of death are depicted as bearers of forbidden knowledge. They impart secrets and skills to humans that are beyond mortal comprehension, leading to corruption and moral decay. This aspect of their character reflects the theme of temptation and the consequences of seeking knowledge that is meant to remain hidden. The stories of renegade angels often conclude with their punishment and retribution by divine forces. Whether cast into the abyss, bound in chains, or subjected to eternal torment, their fates serve as a warning against rebellion and disobedience. These punishments also emphasize the ultimate triumph of divine justice. John Milton's epic poem, Paradise Lost, is a seminal work that explores the themes of rebellion and fall from grace. The poem recounts the story of Satan, or Lucifer, and his followers, who wage war against God and are subsequently cast out of heaven. Satan's defiance and tragic fall are central to the narrative, highlighting the complex interplay between free will, pride, and divine retribution. In Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett's novel, Good Omens, the character Aziraphale is an angel who, along with the demon Crowley, seeks to prevent the apocalypse. Although not a renegade angel of death per se, Aziraphale's actions and the novel's exploration of the blurred lines between good and evil offer a nuanced take on angelic rebellion and its consequences. Renegade angels of death have become a popular motif in modern fantasy and science fiction. Works like the Mortal Instruments series by Cassandra Clare and Supernatural, a long-running television show, feature fallen angels and rebellious celestial beings. These narratives often delve into themes of redemption, power struggles, and the moral complexities of rebellion against divine authority. The stories of renegade angels of death raise important questions about free will and predestination. The defiance of these angels suggests the existence of free will, allowing them to choose rebellion over obedience. However, their ultimate punishment and the triumph of divine justice imply a predetermined order that cannot be altered. This tension between free will and predestination is a recurring theme in theological and philosophical discourse. Renegade angels of death embody the concept of evil as a corruption of good. Their fall from grace and subsequent actions illustrate the destructive potential of pride, ambition, and the desire for power. These narratives explore the origins of evil and its impact on creation, offering insights into the nature of sin and the moral order of the universe. The punishment of renegade angels of death underscores the theme of divine justice. Their rebellion is met with retribution, reaffirming the moral order established by divine authority. However, some narratives also explore the possibility of redemption and mercy, suggesting that even the most fallen beings may find a path to reconciliation with the divine. Renegade angels of death can be seen as mythological archetypes representing the struggle between order and chaos. Their rebellion and fall symbolize the conflict inherent in the human condition, where the pursuit of knowledge and power often leads to moral dilemmas and existential crises. Different cultures interpret the concept of renegade angels of death in various ways, reflecting their unique religious and philosophical traditions. In Western culture, these beings are often associated with the Christian narrative of Satan and his fallen angels. In Eastern traditions, similar themes of rebellion and divine retribution can be found in stories of celestial beings and demons. Renegade angels of death have inspired countless works of art and literature, serving as powerful symbols of rebellion, defiance, and the consequences of overreaching ambition. From medieval paintings to contemporary graphic novels, their depiction reflects the enduring fascination with the themes of fall and redemption. The concept of renegade angels of death is a rich and multifaceted subject that spans religious texts, mythological stories, and modern interpretations. These beings, characterized by their defiance against divine authority and their roles as harbingers of death and destruction, offer profound insights into themes of rebellion, free will, and divine justice. By examining their depiction across different cultural and historical contexts, we gain a deeper understanding of the complex interplay between good and evil, order and chaos, and the moral challenges inherent in the human condition. Renegade angels of death continue to captivate our imagination, inspiring reflections on the nature of sin, the possibility of redemption, and the ultimate triumph of divine justice. Number 10. The Lost Writings of Papias. An in-depth exploration. Papias, an early Christian bishop of Hierapolis, is a significant yet enigmatic figure in early Christian history. Living in the first half of the 2nd century CE, he is best known for his work Exposition of the Sayings of the Lord, or Logian Exegesis, which unfortunately has not survived in its entirety. The fragments and references to his writings found in later works have intrigued scholars and theologians, prompting extensive study and speculation about the content and significance of his lost works. This detailed exploration will examine the historical context of Papias, the content of his writings as gleaned from existing fragments, their theological and historical significance, and their impact on early Christian thought. Papias was a contemporary of early church fathers such as Polycarp and Ignatius of Antioch. He served as the bishop of Hierapolis, a city in the Roman province of Asia Minor, or modern-day Turkey. Papias is believed to have lived during the late 1st century and early 2nd century CE, a period of significant development and consolidation of Christian doctrine and community structure. The primary sources of information about Papias and his writings are the works of later church fathers who quoted or referred to him, notably Irenaeus of Lyons, Eusebius of Caesarea, and Jerome. These references provide valuable but fragmentary insights into Papias's contributions to early Christian literature and thought. Papias's Exposition of the Sayings of the Lord was a 5-volume work that aimed to collect and interpret the teachings and sayings of Jesus Christ. Papias claimed to have received his information from people who had direct contact with the apostles, thus presenting his work as a reliable transmission of apostolic tradition. One of the notable aspects of Papias's methodology was his emphasis on oral tradition and eyewitness testimony. He valued the living voice of those who had heard the apostles firsthand, considering it more reliable than written accounts. This approach highlights the importance of oral tradition in the early Christian community. Several fragments of Papias's work have been preserved through quotations and references in the writings of Irenaeus, Eusebius, and others. These fragments provide glimpses into the content and themes of his work, including Number 1. Sayings of Jesus. Papias reportedly recorded various sayings and teachings of Jesus that were passed down through oral tradition. Number 2. Accounts of the Apostles. He included stories and anecdotes about the apostles, particularly focusing on their activities and teachings. Number 3. Interpretations and explanations. Papias provided interpretations and explanations of the sayings and teachings he collected, aiming to elucidate their meanings for his contemporaries. One of the most significant contributions of Papias is his role in the early history of the Gospels. According to Eusebius, Papias provided information about the origins of the Gospels of Mark and Matthew. Papias claimed that Mark's Gospel was based on the teachings of the Apostle Peter, while Matthew's Gospel was originally composed in Hebrew or Aramaic and later translated into Greek. These assertions have been subject to extensive scholarly debate and have influenced the study of the Synoptic Gospels. Papias's emphasis on oral tradition and eyewitness testimony sheds light on the nature of early Christian tradition. His work demonstrates the fluid and dynamic process by which the teachings of Jesus and the apostles were transmitted and preserved in the early church. This perspective challenges the notion of a rigid dichotomy between oral and written traditions and highlights the interplay between the two. Papias is also noted for his millenarian, or chiliastic, views, which were mentioned by Irenaeus and Eusebius. Millenarianism is the belief in a future 1,000-year reign of Christ on earth, often associated with the Book of Revelation. Papias's support for this doctrine indicates the diversity of eschatological beliefs in early Christianity and contributes to our understanding of early Christian eschatology. Despite the loss of his writings, Papias had a significant impact on later church fathers and Christian tradition. Irenaeus of Lyons, who quoted Papias extensively, regarded him as an important link to the apostolic age. The fragments preserved by Eusebius and Jerome have continued to influence theological and historical studies. The fragments and references to Papias's work have been the subject of ongoing scholarly debate. Scholars have explored the implications of Papias' testimony for the dating and composition of the Gospels, the development of early Christian doctrine, and the nature of apostolic tradition. These debates have enriched our understanding of early Christian history and literature. The study of Papias and his lost writings remains relevant for contemporary theology and biblical scholarship. His emphasis on oral tradition and eyewitness testimony resonates with current interest in the oral and performative dimensions of early Christian literature. Additionally, his millenarian views contribute to ongoing discussions about eschatology and the interpretation of apocalyptic texts. Eusebius of Caesarea, in his ecclesiastical history, provides some of the most significant surviving fragments of Papias's writings. One of the key fragments relates to the origins of the Gospels of Mark and Matthew. Papias claims that Mark acted as Peter's interpreter and wrote down accurately whatever he remembered of Peter's teachings, though not in order. Regarding Matthew, Papias states that Matthew composed his sayings in the Hebrew dialect, and each person interpreted them as he was able. Papias emphasizes the importance of oral tradition in his preface, as reported by Eusebius. He preferred the living voice of those who had been with the apostles to written texts. This fragment highlights the early Christian reliance on oral testimony and the authority it held over written documents in the 1st and 2nd centuries. Another fragment from Irenaeus, quoted by Eusebius, mentions Papias's report of a miraculous saying attributed to Jesus, involving grapes and vines in the kingdom of God producing vast quantities of wine. This eschatological vision reflects the millenarian beliefs of Papias and provides insight into the diversity of early Christian thought. Given Papias's emphasis on the sayings of Jesus, it is likely that his work contained a comprehensive collection of Jesus's teachings, possibly including those not found in the canonical Gospels. These sayings would have been accompanied by Papias's interpretations, providing a valuable early Christian exegesis of Jesus' words. Papias likely included numerous testimonies and anecdotes about the apostles, similar to the fragments that describe the origins of the Gospels. These accounts would have provided early Christians with detailed narratives of the apostles' lives, ministries, and teachings, helping to establish apostolic authority and continuity within the Church. Papias's work probably contained theological reflections on the nature of Jesus, the role of the apostles, and the significance of their teachings. His millenarian views suggest that he engaged with eschatological themes, offering interpretations of apocalyptic texts and visions. These theological reflections would have contributed to the diversity of early Christian thought and doctrine. One of the primary challenges in studying Papias is the fragmentary nature of the surviving evidence. The fragments and references preserved by later writers provide only partial insights into his work, making it difficult to reconstruct the full scope and content of his writings. The surviving fragments of Papias are often mediated through the interpretive lenses of later Church Fathers. Eusebius, for example, was critical of Papias's millenarian views and may have presented his work in a biased manner. This interpretive bias complicates efforts to understand Papias's original intentions and contributions. Understanding Papias within his historical context requires careful consideration of the broader social, religious, and cultural milieu of the 2nd century CE. The diversity of early Christian communities, the development of Christian doctrine, and the interaction with Greco-Roman culture all influenced Papias's work and its reception. The lost writings of Papias represent a significant yet enigmatic chapter in early Christian history. His exposition of the sayings of the Lord offers valuable insights into the transmission and interpretation of Jesus' teachings and the role of oral tradition in the early Church. Despite the fragmentary nature of the surviving evidence, Papias's contributions to the understanding of the Gospels, apostolic tradition, and eschatology continue to resonate with scholars and theologians. By exploring the historical context, content, and legacy of Papias's work, we gain a deeper appreciation for the complexities and richness of early Christian thought and tradition. The study of Papias challenges us to consider the dynamic interplay between oral and written traditions, the diversity of early Christian beliefs, and the enduring quest to uncover the lost voices of the past. Number 11. St. Paul and the Merkabah. An in-depth exploration. The Apostle Paul, also known as St. Paul, is one of the most influential figures in early Christianity. His writings and missionary work significantly shaped the development of Christian theology and practice. One intriguing aspect of Paul's life and thought is his mystical experiences, which some scholars believe may be related to the Jewish mystical tradition known as Merkabah mysticism. This detailed exploration will examine the concept of the Merkabah, its significance in Jewish mysticism, Paul's background and mystical experiences, and the potential connections between Paul's visions and Merkabah mysticism. The term Merkabah, or Merkava, means chariot in Hebrew and refers to the vision of the divine chariot throne described in the book of Ezekiel, specifically Ezekiel chapter 1 verses 4 through 28. This vision is foundational to a mystical tradition that seeks to ascend to the heavenly realms and experience the divine presence. Merkabah mysticism flourished from the 1st century BCE to the 10th century CE, particularly within Jewish communities. Ezekiel's vision describes a divine chariot composed of 4 living creatures, each with 4 faces and wings, and wheels within wheels, all glowing with an intense, fiery radiance. Above the chariot is a throne, and on the throne is a figure resembling a human, surrounded by a brilliant light. This vision represents the manifestation of God's glory and serves as the basis for later mystical interpretations. Merkabah mysticism involves the soul's ascent through various heavenly realms, each guarded by angels and characterized by increasing levels of holiness and complexity. The ultimate goal is to reach the divine throne and behold the glory of God. This ascent requires rigorous spiritual preparation, including fasting, prayer, and meditation, and is often described in apocalyptic and esoteric literature. The primary sources for Merkabah mysticism are the Hekhalot, or Haikalot, texts, which include works like Hekhalot Rabbati, Hekhalot Zutarti, and 3rd Enoch. These texts detail the procedures for mystical ascent, the structure of the heavenly realms, and the names and functions of the angels. They also describe the dangers and challenges faced by the mystic on the journey to the divine throne. Paul, originally named Saul, was a Jewish Pharisee before his conversion to Christianity. He was well versed in Jewish law and traditions, and his writings reflect a deep engagement with Hebrew scriptures. Paul's background in Pharisaic Judaism likely exposed him to various mystical and apocalyptic traditions, including those related to the Merkabah. Paul's most famous mystical experience occurred on the road to Damascus, as described in Acts chapter 9 verses 1 through 19, Acts chapter 22 verses 6 through 21, and Acts chapter 26 verses 12 through 18. According to these accounts, Paul encountered a blinding light and heard the voice of Jesus, leading to his dramatic conversion to Christianity. This experience profoundly shaped his theology and mission, emphasizing the direct, transformative encounter with the risen Christ. In 2 Corinthians chapter 12 verses 1 through 7, Paul describes another significant mystical experience. He speaks of being caught up to the third heaven and caught up to paradise, where he heard inexpressible things, things that no one is permitted to tell. This passage has been interpreted as an account of a Merkabah-like ascent, involving a journey through heavenly realms and an encounter with divine mysteries. Paul's descriptions of his mystical experiences share notable similarities with the language and imagery of Merkabah mysticism. Both traditions emphasize the ascent to heavenly realms, the vision of divine glory, and the encounter with inexpressible mysteries. Paul's reference to the third heaven aligns with the structure of the heavenly realms in Merkabah literature, where multiple levels or heavens are described. In Merkabah mysticism, the ascent and vision of the divine throne result in profound transformation and revelation for the mystic. Similarly, Paul's mystical experiences, particularly the Damascus Road encounter, led to his radical transformation and the revelation of his apostolic mission. Both traditions highlight the transformative power of direct encounters with the divine. Paul's writings frequently employ apocalyptic themes and imagery, which are also central to Merkabah mysticism. Concepts such as the unveiling of divine mysteries, the ultimate triumph of God, and the anticipation of eschatological fulfillment are present in both Paul's letters and Merkabah texts. This common apocalyptic framework suggests a shared mystical and theological milieu. In both Merkabah mysticism and Paul's experiences, the vision of the divine confers a unique authority on the mystic. Merkabah mystics often receive divine commissions or revelations that they are tasked with communicating to others. Similarly, Paul's mystical experiences underpin his apostolic authority and his role as a bearer of divine revelation. This parallel underscores the function of mystical experiences in establishing spiritual and doctrinal authority. The connections between Paul and Merkabah mysticism contribute to our understanding of early Christian mysticism. Paul's experiences reflect a broader context of Jewish mystical practices and beliefs that influenced early Christianity. This perspective highlights the continuity and development of mystical traditions from Second Temple Judaism to the nascent Christian movement. Scholars have explored the impact of Paul's mystical experiences on his theology and writings. His emphasis on union with Christ, the indwelling of the Holy Spirit, and the transformative power of divine encounter can be seen as reflections of his mystical worldview. Understanding Paul in the context of Merkabah mysticism provides new insights into his theological contributions and the spiritual dynamics of his ministry. Comparing Paul's experiences with Merkabah mysticism allows for a broader examination of mystical traditions across different religious contexts. This comparative approach sheds light on the common themes and practices that characterize mystical experiences, such as the ascent to divine realms, the vision of ultimate reality, and the transformative impact on the mystic's life and mission. The concept of mystical ascent, as exemplified by Paul's experiences and Merkabah mysticism, has implications for Christian spirituality. Practices such as contemplative prayer, meditation, and the pursuit of direct encounters with God continue to be central to Christian mystical traditions. These practices reflect the desire to ascend spiritually and experience the divine presence in a transformative way. Exploring the connections between Paul and Merkabah mysticism encourages the integration of Jewish mystical traditions into Christian theology and practice. This integration fosters a deeper appreciation for the shared heritage and spiritual insights of both traditions, enriching contemporary Christian spirituality. The study of Paul's mystical experiences in the context of Merkabah mysticism enhances our understanding of the nature and significance of divine encounters. These experiences are seen as moments of profound revelation and transformation, shaping the mystic's identity and mission. Recognizing the continuity of such encounters across religious traditions highlights the universal aspects of mystical experience. The potential connections between St. Paul and Merkabah mysticism offer a rich and multifaceted perspective on early Christian spirituality and mystical traditions. By examining the similarities in visionary language, theological themes, and transformative experiences, we gain a deeper understanding of Paul's mystical worldview and its significance for his apostolic mission. This exploration also highlights the broader context of Jewish mystical practices that influenced early Christianity, contributing to our appreciation of the continuity and development of mystical traditions. Ultimately, the study of Paul and the Merkabah enriches our understanding of divine encounter, spiritual ascent, and the transformative power of direct experiences with the divine in both historical and contemporary contexts. That concludes our exploration of Tier 3 of the Christianity Iceberg, where we delved into some of the more obscure and fascinating aspects of Christianity. In our next video, we'll be moving on to Tier 4. This tier will take us even deeper into the iceberg, uncovering aspects of Christianity known by very few. Get ready to explore the hidden layers and mysterious beliefs that rarely see the light of day. Stay tuned, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss out on this intriguing journey into the depths of Christian history and theology.